I was originally on the November 4th meeting. That was my problem.
I think we're live streaming now, Mayor Mayhew.
Great, thanks very much. Good to see all our councilors here. Thank you very much, council and staff, for attending the Wednesday, November 25th, 4 o'clock meeting. It's our first budget meeting. This is like Christmas to Kristen. We'll call the meeting to order at 4 p.m. Before I do so, get into any business, I want to give special thanks in regards to Colin Schewel, our new Fire Chief. Colin, thank you very much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to meet you virtually, though it may be. And I see you got a very warm welcome from the signage at the Glencoe Fire Station and the Wardsville Fire Station. That's nice to see. I thought that was a good gesture on behalf of the men and women of our firefighting force, our volunteer force, and that's a very suitable welcome for you. But again, we're delighted that you can attend. I'm not sure if it's a bad omen that it's a budgetary meeting that you attend, the very first one, but we hope that you'll go easy on us. This meeting is followed, council, by a 7 o'clock meeting, so it's my intention not to keep you from one meeting and go and transit into the other. I'd like to see you have about an hour and 15 minutes off for supper. So I think we're going to continue on till about 5:30, 5:45, at which time we'll end the meeting. We'll reconvene at another budgetary meeting, pick up the slack. We're not in a hurry to do this budget. We want to get it right. And so we'll take as much time as required. We'll have to have some efficiencies, of course, but we want to make sure that everyone has a chance to voice their ideas, to move our municipality ahead, but at the same time to act in a fiduciary manner. Today's meeting is being held as a virtual meeting due to the declared emergency. In order to keep everyone safe, we are taking this measure to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Although this is a virtual meeting, we will attempt to record, stream live, and publish in accordance with Council's electronic recording meeting policy. Due to the pandemic and the requirement for social distancing to keep you safe, we are not able to allow the public to attend this meeting. Normally, by attending an open public meeting of the municipality of Southwest Middlesex, you are consenting to your image, voice, and/or comments being recorded and published. Today's meeting may be streamed live as well as recorded and published on the Southwest Middlesex YouTube channel and website. Council, is there any member declaring a pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we will move on to number 3, staff reports. At this time, Kristen, we're going to give you the floor. We ask that you walk us through this first budgetary meeting. And I think we will certainly, Kristen has a lot of information to convey. If there is any lack of understanding of the information she's conveying, raise your hand. The chair will acknowledge you. And we'll stop Kristen very briefly and try to get some clarification on it. Kristen, you take it away. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. So it's my intent tonight to kind of just present a bunch of information to you. Only if we get through all of that would we get any decisions. But I think mostly today it's just going to be you receiving budget survey. We didn't get to that at the last meeting, so we'll start with that. Oh, I guess I could share my screen. All right. Everybody's seeing it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, start with, there we go. So we made the 2021 budget survey available online for residents for 3 weeks for a period from October 1st to October 26th. And in that time we had 110 responses. You can see this graph here shows the responses over time. So what that is kind of telling us is that the peaks at the beginning, usually the way a survey will run is you'll get the most responses at the beginning, and then sometimes in the middle if you republish, and then right at the end before it's due. If we see it steady over the response time, then you may wonder if you needed to make it available for longer. But in this case, you see that it died right down in between the spikes. So, and then the allocation between wards, we had 39% of respondents were in Wardsville and the former Mosa. I'm sorry, 39 were in Glencoe, 24 were in Wardsville and former Mosa, and 37 were in Ward 1, the Appin, Melbourne, Middlemiss, former Eckford. 94% of the respondents were landowners, and the remaining 6 were tenants. So the first question said, what would you like to see happen with the tax rate for 2021? I took a slightly different path with the budget survey this year. Being a COVID year, I guess, and leading into another COVID year, I really wanted to get to whether or not people were interested in seeing services maintained or decreased or increased, depending on what we're seeing in our area for the effects of COVID. So the majority of the respondents would like to cut services to maintain current tax levels. And 80% of respondents would like municipal services either maintained or reduced to control the tax rate. So I think overwhelmingly we're seeing majority of people interested in seeing, oh, I'm sorry, I was just getting some feedback on my end. Overwhelmingly, we're seeing that most people would like to see the taxes so that they're not increased at this point. Only 20% of respondents would like to see taxes increased to enhance or expand municipal services. The next question was, if you would like to see taxes increased, where would you like that directed? So this pie graph shows the breakdown in the summary at the side here. They would like services expanded in economic development, recreation, facilities and programs, resident attraction and retention, and road maintenance. And that's similar to the responses that we saw during last year's survey. People would really like recreation's always a huge draw for people wanting to expand services. People feel it helps to draw people and keep people in our area. If you'd like to see taxes decreased, where would you like to see them come from? So really the point of what I was trying to get to here was, if we want taxes to decrease or not increase by cost of living, we're going to have to decrease the service in some way. And the theory behind that is every dollar is contributing to a service, obviously. So respondents would like to see tax decreases directed to resident attraction and retention, planning, building, economic development, and parks and cemeteries. Now, some of that we do have limited control over. Some of the services are legislated by the Municipal Act. So overall, what services do you find important? And you can see them listed out here. We don't have anything that we provide that the residents feel is just not important at all. But you can see that fire services tops the list of most important. And then road maintenance, winter control, recreation facilities and programs, economic development, and resident attraction. So this to me is where residents would like to see their tax dollars focused. Another interesting question, I was a little surprised by the responses here, but obviously in order to recover funds to pay for the services that we offer, we can either have user fees so that they're a direct pay, the person that's receiving the benefit or the service is paying for it directly, or we can in the general tax levy. So that is when all the residents are paying for the arena, whether or not they use it type of idea. So we can see that all residents had all, I don't know what, residents could see, sorry, everybody had the capacity to increase user fees here. So that is something we can look at this year as well. It's not built into this year's budget presentation because we'll need to do a fees and services review. So Jill's telling me that she's just seeing the overview. So I don't know if my internet's lagging here or whether I need to stop sharing and reshare here. Is that better? Okay.
Yeah, I can see question 6 now.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. That's why I was hesitating as Jill was telling me to advance the slides. So the summary on the suggestions, that was a trickier, because the point of this is to take all the ideas that the residents have and summarize them into a form that council can group and like implement into the budget, I guess is the best way to say it. So I tried to group the like items together. So I guess if we just walk through in Public Works, 4 people asked to improve the sidewalks. We had votes to improve and enhance gravel roads, increase dust control, or reduce frequency of garbage, open the dump. One person said stop wasting money on garbage, hazardous waste and bulk collection day, better snow removal in rural areas, earlier snow removal in the winter, and drainage. And in recreation, 4 votes for arena or recreation facility upgrades, increased park maintenance, and a bike path. And I advance here. Did you guys switch to the next slide?
Yes, we're good.
Okay. Economic development, there was resident attraction and retention, economic development, improving the website, greening initiatives, and 1 person was against the branding costs. And I just grouped under other, 2 people asked to remove the dog tag fees. So I guess that would mean we just levy the costs instead of collecting specific dog tagging fees. Improve the tender contract processes, improve services outside Glencoe, sell surplus assets, contract services to reduce costs, stoplight at Tim Hortons and No Frills, and reduce fees for utilities. So overall, there were quite a few comments that were outside of the municipal scope. For example, rural internet, the basis of tax calculation, OPP costs, things of that nature, which I omitted from the survey because it won't help direct our budget. And some were political in nature, so and some staff considerations. So I excluded those. It's probably not the appropriate forum in a budget deliberation to discuss those types of things. So this just focuses on the comments that would pertain to the 2021 capital and operating budgets. So that's the end of the budget survey. Does anybody have any questions with that? If not, usually we would jump into capital.
Kristen,
Yes.
it's Mary Gay.
Yes.
Can you go back to that slide, please?
Yes,
For
ma'am.
1 second.
Have to. Yes, this one here.
Yeah, yes, thank you. In the other, it said improve tender contract processes. In the comment section, was there any helpful suggestions they had for that? I'd be interested to hear what they had, how you could improve the tender contract processes.
I think I can look back at the detail of the comments. I think the one said basically that, to improve the tender and contract process. The other comment might have been a bit more specific to following up with contracts as they're being carried out. But I can double check on that if you'd like.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm good, Kristen.
Okay. So, sorry, I'm just making myself a note here. Contracts. So typically we'd go to capital next, and I might do that, but I might go through the first couple slides of the operating just so council has a bit of an awareness about where we're starting. Because I want everybody to be able to keep that in mind as we go through. So is everybody seeing the 2021 Southwest Middlesex operating budget? Yes. Okay. So where we're at right now, so you can see, I don't want anybody to freak out just yet. The assessment growth is only up $60,000. Last year, we were up, I think it was $300,000. So the fact that MPAC didn't revalue or didn't start a new cycle this year is definitely impacting the availability of funds for us. We've had a decrease in revenue of about 110,000, and then an increase in expenses, proposed expenses of 395. So the funds required to balance the budget are an additional 446,000, which is a tax rate increase of 4.58%. This is about 119,000 from $119 increase from the previous year on an average home, which is about just under $10 a month. For 2021.
Kristen, can I just interject here for a second?
Yeah.
All that's coming up on my screen is Kristen McGill, treasurer, has started screen sharing and a little, circle thingy. What page am I on so I can follow that?
Okay. It's just the first page of
Tab 7, I think.
Tab
Is it?
7?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Is that correct, Kristen?
I don't have my
Because
button.
I've got nothing on my screen.
I don't either.
Okay, can you see it now that
I just have something. Where are we at now?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Okay. I'm good then.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
So it's also in tab 8. If you want to follow along in this
Okay.
tab 8. So
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome. 1% increase for 2021 represents about $97,000. We're assuming no change in county and school board rates because I don't have any of that information just yet. So I would propose that we could go ahead and set the budget, and any changes in the county and school board rates, we could use the tax rate stabilization to firm up. So in order to lower the total tax rate increase to 1%, council would need to, we need to find funds of about $348,000. So just to keep that target in your mind, I think did I go with the, so I'll go. So the recommended approach. So obviously this is not where staff wants to end up. We're not currently recommending that kind of a budget increase. We're presenting the projects that were proposed by staff and council because we want council to have a full picture of the decisions they're going to need to make and the projects that we're seeing coming up. So the majority of the increase in budget is attributable to capital. I think that once I kind of give you this overview, we'll jump over to capital and I'll go through what we've currently got in there. And then we can jump back to operating and see the changes in the year-over-year proposed budget and what that includes. And could choose to, obviously eliminate any projects or postpone projects. But if, as always, every year I recommend, if the resulting budget increase, if we eliminate or postpone projects that bring us below a 1% increase, my recommendation is always to reserve some funds to bring us up to cost of living to use in the future. So the consumer price index, as reported through Stats Can for October to October, was at 0.7. So my estimate is that we're going to be close to a 1% budget increase year over year, and that's what I've built into the budget for this year. We already went over that MPAC has deferred the assessment updates due to COVID-19, so we are only seeing assessments from new construction. So we're about $250,000 less in revenue in assessments right off the bat from where we would have been last year. Keep in mind, the insurance industry is seeing a significant rate increase across the board. I included a 17% increase, but I did propose that to be funded from reserves. We have some insurance funds specifically set aside for that. But if council chooses not to fund that from reserves, that's obviously up to you. And I don't have any information on the 2021 OCIF formula fund amount yet. So that is used specifically to fund core infrastructure assets. And in 2020, we received $413,000. So we could, once we do find out about that, we could expand road, bridge, sidewalk, or water and sewer programs. It's not typically used for anything recreation related. It's for your core infrastructure assets. So that kind of gives you an overview of where we're currently sitting. And then just to recap as you're going in, like if council's looking to get down to about 1% from where we're at, we need to find about $348,000. So I know I only partially went through this one, and now I'm going to jump to capital, but I kind of wanted you to have a target in mind as we go through these. Is that okay?
Yep, that's good. I think Kristen, you and I have had several conversations regarding the budgetary process over the last couple of years, and you say to me it's very beneficial if we can express to you what we'd like to see, and then you can do your magic. So that's Kristen's instructions or plea to council is we will have to, make friendly communications to her during meetings are fine, and publicly of what our expectations are. Carry on, Kristen.
All right. So we'll stop sharing this one and start sharing the capital budget presentation. Okay. Are we seeing the capital?
Yes. Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So
I've got it, Kristen.
okay, perfect. That is on tab 8. No, it's not. That is on tab 7. For anybody looking to go through the paper copy with us. So overall, this is the first slide here, shows us by department the cost of the assets that are being proposed and how they're being proposed to be paid for. So some through gas tax and other funding, provincial or federal funding. Debenture.
Sorry, Kristen.
Yes.
Your screen hasn't moved to the next page.
Oh. Is it still showing that pretty slide?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a pictorial.
just shared the one.
We had the mayor.
Yeah.
All right. Now, do you see a grid?
Yes.
Yeah.
We do.
I don't know if my internet's just lagging in here a little bit or, but so really the projects we'll want to focus on when looking at the tax rate is anything that has amounts coming from the tax base. So this last line here, because eliminating anything else won't affect the tax rate. That doesn't mean we can't do it. We can always use the funds for something differently in some cases, but that's where we're at for that. So, but 2020 has been kind of an interesting year between the pandemic and some staffing changes and an organization restructuring. A lot of our projects needed to be postponed. So instead I've moved them into the 2021 budget and proposed to be funded with the amounts reserved. So in here, you'll see all of these projects as well. They're not raising taxes from the current year's operating budget. These are all previous year's projects that I'm just pushing forward into 2021. So we've also deferred a couple of projects. So we had an arena air monitoring system and exterior doors budgeted for, but we've also applied for funding for an arena upgrade. So rather than put money into these and then maybe having to change that once we find out whether or not we get the other funding, we're just holding off on that. So that'll sit in reserves until we know where we stand with that funding. And then some of the projects, staff felt that it might be advantageous to defer until we get the updated facilities and recreation master plan. We just don't want to put money into something that the community and council aren't seeing a future for, I guess. So these are the list of projects that we have. The funds are still sitting in reserves to be used, but the projects are currently on hold. So for the new capital projects, sorry, I don't want to cough on you. For the fire department, they are looking for a new air compressor to be funded through the tax base. So if you'd like more information on that, I'm sure Colin can speak to it, but it's not, our existing compressor was rebuilt in 2015. It's quite old, and to do the work that needs to be done apparently is going to be over $10,000. It's currently not complying with legislation and apparently has developed a bit of a leak, is what Chief Bob Hansen told me before he left. So this, I think, is to fill their breathing apparatuses. It's not just a regular compressor. I don't know if council want the bigger explanation from the chief now, or whether you want me to just run through these for now.
No,
I'd like to hear from each department head to describe their individual requests, please, if that's okay.
Yeah. I'd be interested if there's any options available, if it's this or nothing, or whether there's some options. But yes, would Chief Sewell like to speak to that if he's present?
Yeah, I'm still hanging out here. So yeah, so I got a bit of a debrief from Chief Bob before I left, and the instrument is quite old. There's not a lot of, other than differing manufacturers, there's not really a way around this to refill bottles. So this particular picture that Kristen put up is actually one of 3 components to the system. You have this, which is a compressor, and then you also have a bottle fill station and a storage station. And the storage are quite old. The piping is quite old. Under legislation, as Kristen said, the air has to get sent out and tested to a third party, and it has to meet very specific certifications to be able to be in service. And they're constantly need to be maintained, and they only have a very short area of being in spec. So, with this, it would fill 2 bottles at a time. And obviously it's fairly important because of with the bottles obviously in contaminated environments, that we got to make sure that that's within the spec, and that if it does fall out of spec and there is an issue down the road, then it definitely falls into an MLL issue, that sort of stuff. So other than putting out for different manufacturers, these are a very specific item. It really can't be duplicated with what we can do. And as Kristen said, obviously you can put money into to maintain it or try to bring it back up, but you're putting money into an older equipment to try to bring it up to the standards of today. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. They're very easy to operate, and any of the firefighters can operate it as long as they're trained. I had one up at my old department. We had it installed when we got the new station in, and it was able to fill 3 bottles at a time. And again, it was put on a maintenance contract. The company came in regular to maintain it and do the air samples.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief Sewell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Kristen, carry on.
Don't go away just yet. We've got another
question. I can't see all of the hands because of the screen sharing.
No,
Jill, just advise me. Councillor Cowell, do you have a question?
I do, but we can wait until he's talked about the master plan if that's preferred.
Okay, thank you.
There's also the chief is required $25,000 for a fire master plan. So if he wants to speak to that.
To council through Mr. Mayor, Kristen makes it sound so harsh that I require it. I request it. But anyway, I thought whether this is the year, Mr. Mayor and council, we were thinking about it, Jill and I, and with having a 6-year chief so far and myself coming in, you have a bit of development going on in the Glencoe area. Really nothing, the fire department is in good shape. This isn't to mean we're doing it to find faults. What we would do is have a strategic master fire plan done to coattail on your strategic plan and look at moving forward to give us a pathway to what's in store for the next 3 or 6 years. And what this would enable is you could go as deep as having the public have their say in this, or you could go as far as limited to the firefighters and council and staff have their say on what their strategic outlook is for the fire department moving forward. Just meeting with everybody over the last few nights, as well as I've had lots of interaction with the deputies. The fire department seems to be in good shape. There's a good base to move forward. And I really think that the fire master plan would really solidify the good work that's been going on prior to me, but then laying out a ground rule for what could be next. Don't see really huge contentious issues with the fire department. It's just more of a road to see where we're going, something like a rec plan or a strategic plan, and that we're all pulling in the same direction. So again, we're not looking at getting rid of apparatus, closing stations, those contentious issues where sometimes the fire chief does have the overview from a master fire plan. This is more of just getting a $10,000 overview of the fire department and the municipality at the same time.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you very much, Chief Sewell.
Thanks.
Okay, Kristen.
Mayor Allen?
Any questions? Yes, there's some hands I cannot see. Are there any questions from council?
Mayor Allen?
Yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To the fire chief, you just mentioned $10,000, but on our sheet, it says $25,000. So there's a bit of a difference there.
Yes, I noticed the same, Councillor Vink. Yeah.
Oh, maybe I updated that after I printed it?
Through Mayor to Councillor Vink, I would believe that the dialogue that the CAO and I have had, I did get some costing for it, and it's always been 10,000. So it must be just a misprint in the book. So I apologize for that through Kristen.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, Chief.
Krista had a question as well.
Kristen, go ahead.
So my question was about the new compressor. How you said it has a short area of being in spec, and I wasn't sure if that meant a timeline in the sense that the equipment is only useful for a short period of time. My concern is that if this piece of equipment goes out of date, we're spending a lot of money on something that needs to be replaced, and perhaps there'd be another type of service available. So could you tell me how long this piece of equipment would be in use for, and what our asset management timeline would be to replace it?
Councillor, through Mr. Mayor, is there's to my knowledge, there's no timeline, but most of the time that when the fire departments I've been at with this cascade system, we'll call it, usually time is the enemy. Usually it ends up costing more to maintain it down the road as it does to finally buy a new one and move forward with that. So usually the telltale signs for this is basically it can't fill the bottles with the air and safely be within spec for the items that they're testing for any impurities in the air. So when I say that it's out of spec, I mean more so for the air testing than the machine itself. But generally age dictates how long this piece of apparatus would stay in service. And it's usually a cost benefit factor between how much to repair it to how much it is to buy a new one.
So as a follow-up question, it's been rebuilt since 2015, but how old is the piece of equipment?
All I got from Chief Bob was it was quite old. That's all he gave me. He didn't give me a specific age on this equipment, but it is quite old.
My struggle with that is if you have a cell phone or a computer that is 5 years old, it is considered quite old, whereas my house is over 100 years old and it is also quite old. If someone from staff could please get back to us as to how old that machine is, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chief. Kristen, go ahead. If there's if there's any councillors that I can't view on my screen and wish to ask a question, just please speak up. I'll be alerted on your voice. If not, Kristen, carry it away.
All right. I was just trying to look to see if I could quickly find the compressor age, but I haven't. We'll look for that. Okay.
Kristen, I'll follow up with that for you.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is copier printer. So in our central storage department or room, sorry, in the office here, we have 2 large printers. They copy, scan, fax, the multi-units. And these are in our asset management plan. So this is the year prescribed to replace them. Now council can opt in or out of this for this year. Our warranty is still valid, but as the models increase and the efficiency increases, the annual operating cost on a newer model is about $985 a year cheaper. So it might be like eventually we're going to have to replace this. Now we could defer it should council wish. And then we go into the operations department, the recreation capital request.
Question.
Yep, sorry.
No, that's okay. You can't see me. So when I've worked in many different offices, they often have a contract with a service provider where they lease a piece of equipment, and in the lease there is an agreement to upgrade the equipment on a timeline. And is there any possibility of a lease being considered, and that way it's not necessarily an asset that we constantly have to be upgrading ourselves, but something that we have the opportunity to kind of get upgrades as they become available, and that way we have those opportunities to see efficiencies every couple of years rather than however many years. And I was just wondering, what's the asset management timeline on this one? How old is this machine?
I think they are on it's either a 5 or a 6 year.
Okay.
So that if it's a 5 year, that's $1,600 a year. We did the lease versus buy analysis last time when we replaced the Xerox a couple of years ago, and it was definitely cheaper to go this route. We're actually seeing the machines coming down in price. Like a couple, 2 or 3 machines ago, they were closer to double that. And
it's likely because a lot of things have gone online. I mean, there's some building departments that pride themselves on having no paper. So, I mean, that's one of those sort of things where, that's good to know. But thank you. Thank you.
If we were to outsource the printing, for example, that could be a move you could make. But as long as we're printing our tax bills here and our water bills here and those types of things, it wouldn't be advantageous to lease. So for the operations, the replacement of the bleachers,
Hey, Gay has a question.
Oh,
Yes, go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I know these, it's hard to see. It's more of a comment, but Kristen, you're actually right. When we amalgamated, we did lease those pieces of equipment, Krista. And over the years, we just found it made more sense to purchase it ourselves. So I was just going to agree with Kristen. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, Council, it's not difficult. It's impossible for me to see. You're not on my screen because of the slide presentation. So just speak up as the Deputy Mayor did. Go ahead, Kristen.
All right. So the next item are bleachers proposed to be funded through the tax base. And this is in accordance with the asset management plan. So I don't know if Greg wants to speak to this.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Allen. There's a couple things that we were faced with in the rec program as far as capital is concerned. You can hear me okay?
Yes, you're fine.
Okay, thank you. Greg. There were items associated with the arena and our application and for grant money. So if they were related to the application itself, those we kind of put on hold. There were other items like this item that were actually in the actual capital plan last year that just didn't happen. So I moved those forward, but when I asked the questions on, the number that we have above us and where the actual replacement would occur, there's the information is somewhat there, but not totally there. So this particular item is one of those items that is going to get a further review. And at the same time, we haven't put, we had an item in the 2020 budget, which was the creation of the rec facility and rec master plan. And that particular input was $30,000. And I know right now that number is probably going to be double that. So, in reviewing the complete package for recreation, I'm going to bring that RFP for facilities and rec master plan into the discussion. So, in the end, we may do some form of replacement of bleachers, but I'm not sure that, that we, replace the whole system at this particular point. And that's the comments that I got when asked, like, what was the plan for bleacher replacement itself? So certainly, I think, our highly used areas or areas where we have a fair bit of use and a fair bit of spectators, those are the areas we need to generate our replacement of bleachers at. There are other areas where we have bleachers that, those particular areas are just not used that much anymore. So I did move this item forward, and at the same time, knowing that we would have sort of a further review of this internally. And at the same time, I still have to deal with the rec master plan, and this will help in determining, the inputs that we need to get that particular project completed. So that's pretty much what I have to say about this item.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Greg, if I could ask a question, in view of the fact that there will be some future analysis on this project, and I addressed this question to both you and Kristen. If Kristen has put $67,000 in the budget for this particular capital expenditure, very often councils of any municipality will take a look at it. They're not arguing the need, they're arguing the year and the timing and the cost. If we broke this down into 2 years, we'd be looking at around $33,000 a year instead of the $67,000 to save a bit of money on the tax rate increase this year, and it would allow you time to formulate your studies and your analysis on this. Is that good money management?
Well, I think we need, through you, Mayor Allen, I do think we need to look at the whole program as far as, this isn't something that I was involved with completely last year. So, I want to have a look and generate the money in recreation to the right spots at this particular point. And it's okay to have a great big list, but I mean, it's not going to really go very far if we don't, if we don't act on if we don't act on the master plan and what that's going to deliver to us. So, I would say you're probably correct in some form, Ellen. Maybe, this is broken down into 2 years just based on how people are using our facility. So I'm not sure 67,000 would be even close to being enough to replacing all the bleachers.
I'm afraid of that too, but I'm wondering if we can, schedule the project over a period of a couple of years or 3 years. It would be beneficial to our tax rate. And but again, we know that there's an inflationary aspect to some of these things too. So, but we'll work on it. Thanks, Greg.
I have a comment, please.
Mm-hmm. Yes, go ahead.
So one of the things we've talked about as a rec committee is that doing things in the form of individual one-off projects isn't taking a look at the need of the community as a whole. And one of the things that will come out of the rec master plan is taking a look at what the needs of the community as a whole are and saying, okay, so maybe we need a rec complex that includes a little bit of bleachers, a basketball court that can also be used as soccer and road hockey, and bring it all together into a little recreational unit in Wardsville or that sort of thing. And so the discussion hasn't necessarily been about one-off projects like the bleachers, which we've done in the past, but moving forward and having whole projects going forward. And so I think what Greg was maybe trying to say is that when he says they're going to maybe put this off, it's more of taking a look at what the master plan says and moving in that direction rather than moving on one-off projects. And with that, you need to set some money aside. So I think you're right, Alan, in the sense of let's put some of this money aside, maybe not all of it because of the budgetary constraints we're facing this year, and don't necessarily put it specifically under bleachers, but put it under something like, reserves for the rec master plan, so that when the plan comes back and we have recommendations that maybe take us in an entirely different direction, there's funds there for them to use. And then that comes back to council and we get to decide and approve those projects.
Correct. Thank you, Kristen.
Right. let's keep going through these. We can, we don't have to make decisions tonight on what's staying in, but so the next one is the municipal office capital work. Total cost of $279,274. And there is a grant available for some, and then so here's some pictures of the municipal office, and then HVAC units placed. There were some studies done this year towards Greg could probably speak more to that.
Yep. Greg, would you like to chime in here?
Yeah, so through you, Mary Ellen, if you recall, council did approve the company, basically a consultant company that could provide us with up-to-date information on what was required to bring the building, the municipal office, up to standard as far as some of the COVID protocols. So a couple things that were done. I mean, a full study was done on air quality in the building, which produced some of the recommendations that we see in front of us, as well as a building envelope study. And, you know, those have been completed, and basically what is being said is that we need to replace the roof and improve our HVAC systems. You know, that's pretty much the sort of Coles Notes version of this. And at the same time as the consultant provided those recommendations, did provide the actual pricing that they would, think that was going to be around, like just a ballpark pricing itself for these particular projects. So that's kind of what we have in front of us here. I mean, we are dealing with an older building, a building that one time was a fire station. I think at one time was a garage, and then turned into a municipal office. So it's kind of a pieced together building, and the actual roof needs to be replaced, and two of the three or three of the four HVAC units have to be replaced as well, so that we can meet the standards and provide a safe workplace for everybody working at 153 McKellar. So that's kind of what we have in front of us, and we just got those reports back. And the first step of this would be to do the roof, and then the HVAC units would come after that.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Council, any questions? So you're talking roof replacement, not roof repair, Greg. You're not talking hot tar and then more granular on top. You're talking taking the roof right down to the boards?
Well, it's flat. It's pretty much a flat roof. So, I mean, it would be a flat roof replacement. They did talk about the membrane, the use of a membrane. So, I would have to dole into that a lot more when it came time to put this on the market.
All right.
But that was the suggestion that came from the consultant.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Just a clarification, Mayor Allen.
Yes, go ahead. Martin, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Mayor Allen. So this 279,000, that's just for the roof and the HVAC. It doesn't include any interior work.
I believe that's I believe that's the request at this point. Greg can clarify that.
Yeah, so through you, Mary Ellen, you're correct, Councillor Vink. The other thing is that there have been some monies moved forward from this year's budget for some of the interior work that was planned but was not completed. So that money is not part of this particular package, but is there to complete the work. Got to remember as well that the building has suffered from mold problems. And, partially that is because the building envelope is not in very good shape, where we're getting leakage through the roof and that type of thing. So, I mean, if we don't fix the roof, we can do all we want with all the HVAC units, et cetera, but it's not going to do us any good. So we need to kind of fix the roof, put a new roof on, and then deal with the HVAC problems that we have for the building.
Okay. Thanks, Greg. Flat roofs are expensive and a pain.
Mayor,
Yes, Councillor Crothers, I see your hand up.
Mayor, oh, you
Yes,
can see me.
Yep.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay, thanks. I'm not showing up on the screen. Yeah, just to kind of reiterate what Greg is saying, that probably one of the single most important components when they fail is the roof. And as the roof goes, the building will go really fast. And just agreeing with what he's saying, it's probably been many, many years since it's been attended to. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, Kristen, keep going. Kristen, we've got about an hour left.
All right, let's get through this. The Historical Society roof, cost of $50,000 funded through tax base. And this was a request brought forward from a councillor. We had reserved $5,000 last year for some roof repairs. But the proposal, the councillor would like to see a steel roof put on this building.
Much of that is flat roof too. I'm not sure if the councillor was considering trussing or what, but
Councillor would like to.
Yes.
Councillor Brothers, go ahead.
Me here. Yes. The roof, I'm assuming by what's on here, is to replace the steel part only, and which is actually a fairly small proportion of the whole building. If you look at it just on, you can do the satellite view on Google Maps and you'll see, but it is getting in bad shape.
That's
the
the shingles.
are pretty, the shingles now are pretty much shot.
Yeah. No, I thought you were talking about the flat portion as well, which is the significant.
I don't. Greg can clarify that, but I believe it was just the steel part, was it not? Or
it's just the shingles itself.
Yeah, yeah. I'm suggesting that's probably a pretty generous figure because based on the cost of the roof on the new the steel roof on the new daycare center is roughly $80,000, and that's way far bigger.
Yeah, a lot more square footage.
So I think that's a pretty generous number.
Thank you, Ian, for clarification on that. And Greg, Kristen, go ahead.
Now this, I think council is already abreast of this when we apply for the funding. So, but I wanted to keep a place in the budget for it. We've applied for funding for larger upgrade, significant cost. So if we do receive the funding and go ahead with it, we'll need to raise about $36,100 a year. So I think, that one's not a foregone yet. Waiting on use for that, so we can just go past that.
Okay.
The additions to the Arboreta. So the cost is about $30,000. $7,500 was to be raised to the tax base because we had allocated that to COVID reserves this year, how mitigate costs we were seeing for that. So we've deferred the $22,000. We had put $30,000 in the budget last year, deferred $22,500 this year, and we had allocated the $7,500 elsewhere. So the hope is to just raise that $7,500 back that COVID and put. So council has already approved these projects. We just need the more funds for that we had allocated.
Okay.
It's 17 hours.
Oh, sorry about that, guys.
The paving the municipal parking lot. So that's not the parking lot outside the municipal building here. It's not the municipal. This is the parking lot across the street behind, Keller and that bank stores between the post office just past Symes. And this is a request brought forward from a council member as well. And the idea is to provide parking for some of the vendors and patrons of the main street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
The next one is, sorry, Krista, did you have a question? Or
Just a comment about the parking lot. I had many different, not vendors, that's not the right word, business owners on Main Street. They've talked, I think, to all of us about the struggles they're having with parking on the main street. And it balances from people who live on the main street, people who work on the main street, and ultimately their desire is to make sure there's space for their customers when they get them. We all struggle with our main street concerning how we can support the businesses. And I had thought that if we paved this parking area, it would allow for the opportunity to have a good base for people to park. And then I sort of thought with the next thing that's going to be coming up shortly, accessible parking. I know that it's not the case for everyone, but my grandma, for example, she's 94, and for her, it's not so much the distance that is a struggle, it is the actual quality of the sidewalk or the street that impacts her ability to access the main street and walk and so on and so forth. So for the two ideas, I thought this was a good solution to both of them. It provides the opportunity for accessible parking, but at the same time provides an area for those who live, work, and play. That's one of the things we talk about, to have off Main Street parking when it's needed to keep those Main Street parking spots available for the business owners and the customers who might be using them.
Thank you. It'll have to be discussed. No question. Yeah, we, following 46 years on the street, I know parking is a problem, and some of it is brought upon, the problems are brought upon by the business community itself by parking there. And we need both, but we mustn't forget the accessibility of parking on Main Street as well. It's a big ticket item.
all right.
Kristen, go ahead.
Next one is due to a resolution that council made in February, and it said that staff prepare a report identifying the budget implications, dedicating up to $25,000 of improvements to the Eckford Community Center parking lot, and that any potential improvements be done in consultation with the Appin Presbyterian Church, other community groups, and the public from Appin in general. So this is just to raise the funds to support council's wish of dedicating $25,000 to Appin parking. Obviously, a report would still have to come back to identify solutions. This is just to raise the funds and set them aside for that purpose.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
I see three people on my screen. So any questions, council? Please just kindly raise your voice. And
All right.
hearing none, go on.
One is 4 accessible parking spots on Main Street at a cost of $60,000 to be funded from the tax base. This was another request of a council member. I don't know that this is exactly what they would look like. I just tried to offer a visual just from Google.
Yes, thank you. Just to add to that, I called Chris Trainey today to clarify the costs associated in the budget to see if we were on track, and he thought there was 2 entities at the school crossing was also mentioned on the south end of town that could be improved, but the plan would be to cut the curbs on Main Street in primary locations that would be conducive to people getting their mail, conducive to people going to a financial institution, and to various elements, the train station in terms of entertainment. There would be curb cuts would be required in that, and the curb would be taken out and asphalted over so that there would be a ramp-like a venue for the individual to traverse on. or wheel on. It would be acceptable. And these would meet the standards of the county and could be done, but at a cost. I was hoping that because it's a county road, they may share some of the costs, but that's not the case. It is regarded as a municipal improvement to our ratepayers. And so we would bear the cost of that. But I also want council to know that we do have a certain obligation to make our community accessible. And that will have to be discussed with Kristen and staff as we proceed through the budget. Thank you. Go ahead, Kristen. Any other questions?
All right.
Okay.
Yes, I have a question, Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Martin. I see you now. Martin, you just came up on my screen.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Allen. Yeah, when you're talking about accessibility, is that only for Glencoe, or are we going to have to be accessible? We have commercial properties in Wardsville and probably Afton and Melbourne. Will we have to look at that in the future for those areas as well?
Actually, Martin, it's already been looked at. Chris Traney has examined those areas as well. And the guys on the road crew that go through Wardsville on a daily basis have inspected Wardsville, and primary sites too are being mapped, and that will be considered as well.
All right. Okay, next one is the crosswalk. Now, this is a request of a council member to move the existing crosswalk that is located at Parkhouse Street in Glencoe. The county would undertake the work, but it would be at our cost. I think it's just moving it. There's a bit of a rise in the road, so I think the concern is that you might not crosswalk that until you want on it. So move a little further into town, then just up from the corner, then it might improve the visibility and safety of the kids crossing there.
Sure.
Can I jump in there quickly? Yeah, so this particular project is one that is scheduled to happen in the spring. We do have the location. They were having trouble getting the contractor, and they were worried about weather. So it has been moved to the spring. And we're hoping, actually, it's probably going to be just a little bit later in the spring, because we'd like the new crosswalk to come into place when the kids go back to school. So, you know, it's something we worked on, but they're having trouble getting the contractor. So, because there has to be a concrete pad poured, there's got to be cuts made, all that kind of stuff. So it's just not putting lines on the road.
And thank you, Greg. Council, I had the pleasure of accompanying or asking Greg and the county engineer. We went for a tour one day, and we examined all these areas that are being discussed. There's a little knoll in the highway just north of Waddick Fuel. And over that knoll, as you're proceeding north, is the crosswalk for the school and pedestrians. So it is a bit of a blind spot. So that requires, in order to compensate that frailty of that location, we have to move that a little further to the north, and that'll compensate it. But we have Greg, again, thank you for accompanying us that day, and Mr. Traney, we thought that it should be a priority that it be moved. Go ahead, Kristen. Thank you.
All right.
I have my hand up.
Oh, I'm
sorry, I couldn't see you there. Krista, I hear Chris.
Yes.
Chris's voice. Go ahead. Yep.
My concern is that in our first term, we had money set aside for crosswalk improvements in Southwest Middlesex, and we decided to opt for not having crosswalk improvements. There was the opportunity to change. We initially were discussing Main Street ones up at the downtown core, as we can call it. But we opted not to save any money on safety for the Main Street for the children. And now I think it's amusing 2 years later, we're saying, oh no, maybe safety was an issue and was a concern. So I'm just really disappointed that we decided to spend that money 2 years ago instead of holding on to it. And now we're in a rainy day situation where the situation for our economy is even worse, but we still need to spend the money.
Yep. I believe the business community, in answer to Councillor Cal's comments, I think it was not, the idea was to redirect the money into an avenue of safety as well, for handicap parking, for better school crossings in all areas. And it was more a redirection of money. And I think even the business community had presentations on that as well. But it's money that we haven't spent, so I'm certainly hoping we can find it in this budget.
Can I jump in, Alan,
Yes,
at this
go ahead,
particular
Greg.
point? Just a quickie on this one, because I think we're talking about a couple different items here. I may be wrong, you can let me know, but I mean, this particular item is the item to move the actual manned or the person crosswalk that's at Park House and Main Street, which the majority of its work is to get the kids across the road to go to the schools. So, you know, that's what we're looking at moving. I think that the discussion we had last time was having crosswalks in the downtown.
You're correct, Greg. Absolutely, yes. And and my perception of that was we did not go ahead with that. We did not feel that that was appropriate at the time. So we were redirecting. We were going to redirect our investment in other areas, and that is when the question of accessibility came into play, and invest our money in that. But you're absolutely right. It's two different animals. Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, we need to move. The thing was, if you look at the crosswalk currently, the one that's at Park House, it's right at the intersection. So the problem that the county had, and as well as council, and when we had a look at it, was that there's just a whole lot of activity happening. Cars turning left, you know, kids trying to cross the street. That's why we do have the crossing guards there.
Yeah, I don't believe they are there, Greg. The crossing guards are on.
They're down farther. So
they're down farther. Yeah, there's no crossing guards on this particular crosswalk.
So anyway, it was just to move this one. It wasn't. I think that other discussion was about crosswalks in the downtown.
Absolutely, it was. I'm very familiar with that.
And one of the comments that was made by the deputy mayor was to set aside some money to look at increased safety measures, and actually this council decided not to do that.
Well, I've been a proponent of accessibility all my life, and I am not stopping now. I think we should proceed as we go through the budget deliberations and pay some attention to those that require assistance. I think I would go as far to say that I believe the business communities of Southwest Middlesex, and I'll include Wardsville and Glencoe in that, are the only regions of commerce that I see with no accessible parking places. When I look at Bothwell, I look at Strathroy, I look at Thamesville, I see handicap parking places on their main street within their business communities. And Glencoe has never been host to any of those, or Wardsville. The private sector may have them, but the public sector does not.
Okay.
Go ahead, Kristen.
We've got a few more here. And then if we've got time, we can flip back to the rest of the operating. There's some work done on Shiloh Line. We don't know a lot about it yet. We've just been by Brooke Elvington that they're looking to do some work on Shiloh, and since we have a boundary agreement, we would be responsible for some of the works involved in that, but we don't have any more information than that as far as what's done and at what cost and what portion of that was ours. So obviously we'll have a chance to review that. On that before all the work's undertaken and any of our funds have to be committed. This is more just a heads up that this could be coming.
Our contribution would be half, Krista, would it, Kristen?
That I'm not sure. I'm not sure that it's half. No.
Okay. All right.
Our jurisdiction. And this is Wardsville Storm Sewer Outlet. So this would be a cost of about $119. Greg could probably give you a bit more detail on this, but this would be for a couple of the outlets that were proposed in the presentation that council received. Now this would be, you know, a $4 million project over 10 to 15 years. So it would be a cost of approximately this, if not a little bit more each year for the next 10 to 15 years. So there's, I think if council wants to improve drainage in Wardsville, I think they have this option or to go through the drainage act, from what I understand. Greg, do you want to take over?
Through you, Mayor Allen. Kristen, I was going to make a couple points with regards to this. One was that this is just the first component of this project, which would create a couple legal outlets in Wardsville for drainage. Just keep in mind that, you know, when we talk about drainage in any of the hamlets, the drainage is either on public, is for the road authority, or it's for private property. And the particular plan that was created, it did allow not just to address the road issues, but it did allow for some relief for you know, the residents in Wardsville to tap in to get legal outlets. Currently, we have no legal outlet. I won't say any more about that at this particular point. And the second part of this was that the money that was spent to create the stormwater master plan itself, well, it's not, you know, that money, there was a complete survey done of the whole system in Wardsville. So a whole lot of engineering work was put into this, and it, you know, we'll never lose that money that we spent there. So we, you know, ultimately with this particular project, we have a couple different options. One is the, you know, to move ahead with something like this, but that's going to take a commitment of $4 to $5 million over 10 to 15 years. And the second way would be to, you know, entertain this particular project under the Drainage Act. And the Drainage Act itself has a couple components that can be a real asset to council. One is it does have a public scoping component where we can go out to the community and find out what the pulse is of the community is, if they want to see a project like this happen. And are they willing to pay the user fees to go ahead and get it done? So we have that. And then certainly, you know, there are many, many, many hamlets and many places where these type of issues are dealt with under the Drainage Act. And we are set up to, you know, to move that forward that way as well. So there, you know, it's not like there is no problem there. There is a problem there. It's a private problem and a public problem. And, you know, we just need to get it resolved somehow. I think this was a good exercise in creation of the Stormwater Master Plan. Even if this project went to the Drainage Act, we would still be using all that information that the general taxpayers have paid for. So that's the situation that we have. It is a large project. The number you see in front of you is to create a couple outlets. That's where we would start. But that commitment is probably going to be between 4 and 5 million over 10 to 15 years.
Thank you, Greg. You've illustrated the immensity of the cost of this, which I had spoken, Jill and I met and discussed some budgetary aspects early today. And this council is much of the reason why Kristen came up with that 4% plus tax rate increase, was because of this one particular entry in a proposed budgetary process. So there is ways of doing this for the people of Wardsville to get benefit and yet still keep our tax rate competitive by going through the Drainage Act. And furthermore, you know, we can certainly, whatever that cost is, we'll make sure that it's amortized comfortably. If we make a decision of going through the Drainage Act, we'll make sure it's amortized comfortably, that it doesn't have a profound effect on annual taxation. Again, just to reiterate what Greg said, SPREET did that drainage study on that. And if in future engineering, if we should hire SPREETs to do that, much of that engineering is already done. Thank you, Greg, for your comments there. It is an immense project. Kristen, go on.
Right. The last new project we've got on here, this is one that you saw last year on the budget as well. Main Street Glencoe water main. So a significant cost. We're hoping for an official announcement on some funding which would mean that we need to raise, or we need to pull 378,000 of that out of reserves. Now, this doesn't impact the tax rate at all because it's coming from a completely separate pot of funds. But just to keep in council's forefront of your mind that this potentially is a large project that could be undertaken this year. And so that wraps up the capital proposal. So the summary, you can see by cost, how it's funded. So the total proposed to be raised in this presentation so far through the tax base is 866,000. And that's an increase of 130,000 over the previous year to be raised through the tax base.
Okay.
So if there's no more questions on this, I'll flip back to the rest of the operating budget. I apologize for jumping around on you guys, but
Okay. And just advise council what tab they're on there, if you would, Kristen.
okay, I'm back on tab. The operating presentation in tab 8. So can everybody see the slide that says what classes make up the assessment growth?
Yes, I got it.
Yep, I'm good, Kristen.
All right. So you can see here, I don't know if you can see my cursor moving here, but a lot of these changes on the right are 0. Some of these changes you see like up 1.6, up 0.28, but a lot of them are a 0 increase. And that is because of MPAC's deferral on the assessment summary or the assessment cycle for this year. So the assessment's up 1.02%. That is just the detail of what was in the previous slide. So the taxes by class are 67% residential, 22.4% farm, and then just under 5 commercial, and the rest spread between the rest of the classes. This is Councillor Vink's favorite. This is a duplicate of last year's, like it only goes up to 2020, because I didn't want anybody to panic with because it's currently sitting at that 4+% increase. And I don't want anybody to panic just yet, but the assessment, what this slide is meant to illustrate is the effect of assessment and tax compounded on a property. So the assessment won't play a factor in this year's tax increase. It'll be just the rate that impacts that. So this is a duplicate of the capital slide that we saw in the previous presentation. This is where the budget dollars are proposed to go. So you can see public works is the bulk of it, looking after our gravel roads. This does not include waste. Waste is listed separately at 11%. So the public works at 32% is our roads, snow removal, those types of things. The police budget is, again, it's given to us. They tell us what we're paying annually. And then facilities and recreation, capital, fire protection, admin, waste management, council, building, and then the Wardsville sewer portion. That is the amount that the Wardsville sewer system, sanitary sewer system, is not sustaining itself. So the general taxpayers are funding that system by $44,600 for 2021. Kind of where a bit of a visual of where the taxes would need to go. So you can see the 2019 budget by department, 2020, 2021. And this is where the 506 in additional funding would be coming from, is these like general government planning and spread between departments this way. This is just showing the increase in different ways. So this here is showing okay, I'm not sure what I just got a message about, but so here's that 506,000 again. This is showing you the breakdown in budget increases over the previous year. So we've got a decrease in revenues, so different grants and OMPF. We don't have any control over. Wages and benefits, we have 103,000, almost 100,000 in savings this year. We have the computer and IT budgets up about just under 15,000, and that is due to requests for Questica, which is a budgeting software, and Evolta, which is I think it's eScribe actually. It shouldn't be Evolta, it should be eScribe, which is an agenda software. We've had requests for donations from the Quest Center and the Women's Rural Resource Center. We put in some LPAT tribunal defense costs just to hedge against any legal costs we may incur there. If we don't spend it, we can reserve it. An official plan amount of 20,000, community improvement plan of 20,000. And that really in this section is from the 17,000 down to the 20,000 community improvement plan. That's really the items that council could choose to keep or defer or remove entirely. The street pool debenture, Sterling truck debenture, and backhoe debenture, they are already committed funds, so we have to leave those in there, but it's an increase over the previous year. The OPP costs actually went down over the previous year, so we have some savings from that. Some savings in reserve and fire operating. And so you can see here that brings us down to the capital of the 355,900 increase over the previous year. That's where the majority of your $500,000 total proposed budget increase is coming from. So that 506 is extra money that we need to raise in taxes. And this here is where that's broken down. Here's a breakdown of the changes in salaries. So we can go through, we don't want to talk individual people on this forum again, but you can see we've got quite a savings here this year. And the last slide is our reserve balances. So what my hope is that when council gets to the point they'd like to make some decisions, you now have all of the information, the line by line details are in your binder. I'm always available for questions and clarification. But if we could, I guess, maybe vote on some of the capital projects, or if council knows something off the top of their head that they want to vote to keep or vote to defer or exclude, and then tell me where we want to get to, I can bring back a recommendation of how I can get us there, or prioritize the projects in a different way to make the decision making maybe a bit easier. But that's all your information for the 2021 budget.
Thank you, Kristen, very much. I did an error in my message I sent you. I told you I was going to quit at 6:45. It should have been 5:45 there. So I just, and Jill pleaded with me not to go to 6:45. So I apologize for that error, but thank you very much. Council, we have a few minutes. Any questions? Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Wilkins.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Kristen, my first question is decrease in revenues, OMPF. I know the figure's large, but I don't know the exact amount. What is the total amount of decreases we have realized in Southwest Middlesex from the OMPF funding over the last number of years?
Okay, that,
It's 110,803 this year, maybe.
this year.
Well, I want her to go back when the decreases started, Mayor Mayhew. Thank you.
Okay, I'll have to bring that back. I've only got 2018 and forward on my screen.
Okay, thank you. Maybe next meeting you could have that number for us.
Yes.
Kristen. So Kristen, the wages and benefits, see slide for breakdown. Part of that is because of restructuring, right?
Yes.
Okay. Those are my only two questions. Thank you, Kristen.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
If I
Deputy Mayor.
could jump in. So one of the delegations that some of the council members participated in at AMO this year was a joint delegation with Adelaide Metcalfe and North Middlesex that we put forward as a suggestion. And part of that was to highlight to the provincial government how much money we have lost. I could only go back to 2012 because that's as far back as I could go. But in terms of the OMPF loss, it's significant because it's compounded year over year and how much we are losing. So we're in the, a lot of money that the tax base for Southwest Middlesex is making up for the loss over the last decade that we used to get in an unconditional grant format where we could apply it to whatever we want. And part of that too, we had the discussion in terms of the context of the farm tax rebate and how those unconditional grant programs were supposed to make up for that and how it really is not supporting that funding and really pushes that tax burden onto the property owners here to support farm taxes. And our recommendation was that Ministry of Finance do consider this. They acknowledged, the Minister of Finance did acknowledge that they would be reviewing the OMPF grant calculations and would take that under advisement as well, and provided a letter to that respect. But it's a significant amount of money that used to come from essentially provincial subsidies to help support what it is that allows us to get, as a community to have food go to the market, because we're a largely agricultural property, which means we're a huge geography. And all that's been diminishing year over year over year. So that infrastructure support is coming just more and more so from our tax base on its own. So it's a difficult calculation to make, but we're definitely in the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we have lost over the years. Sorry to interrupt on that.
Good. Thank you, Jill. I remember that presentation well. Yeah.
Mayor Allen?
Yes, I hear your voice, Martin. Go ahead. There, I see you now.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'd like to disagree partially with what Jill and Mary Gay has said, because as Kristen put down by farm, how much more taxes that we paid in the last 8 years. And that partly offset the reduced funding. So it was the farmers that made up a lot of that reduced funding.
As a result of the evaluation on property, though, Martin, impact is responsible for that. Not so much the municipality, but the assessment values placed on those lands. That's something
The bottom line is,
the markets.
bottom line.
Yeah, the markets largely control that. The municipality doesn't. Jill, correct me if I'm wrong, or Kristen, but as I see it, would that not be correct? Am I a lone voice here?
Oh, no, MPAC does control the phase-ins and the county does control the ratios. Yes, I think that's best.
Yeah. Okay.
Mayor Allen, my only point was that the farmers are paying a lot more taxes, and so that offset the OMF.
It does.
OM.
Yeah,
Yes.
it does offset it, Martin, and it's a point well taken, because we all know that the costs have not gone up in relationship to incomes either. So we have to work on that. But there is some unfairness there. We fully realize that, and it's not just a municipal level of government, but it'll be all levels of government. We'll have to work on that.
Yeah, Mayor Mayhew, may I make a comment on this?
Voice, go ahead. I hear your voice, Mark. Go ahead.
Well, I partially agree with Martin and how farm taxes have gone up so much. Although I feel in the next few years that maybe some of that will be offset, because it looks like house prices are going up a lot. And as MPAC reevaluates residential properties, the ratio between the farms and the houses will change somewhat, because there for quite a few years, farm land prices were going up a whole lot faster than house prices.
Yeah.
And now the next few years, it may be that house prices are going up, or at least the way MPAC assesses them is going up a lot more than farmland prices.
No, we witnessed that. The market again is dictated supply and demand, and the supply short, the price goes up, but they certainly are. Council, I can't see you. Kristen's slides are still on the screen, but any other questions? I can hear your voice. Kristen, if I could ask one, in terms of the budgetary presentation for 2021, has landfills been considered in this, and what monies have to be set aside for landfills?
Yes, sir. We have, just trying to pull up my copy here. We have reserved in this just under 180,000. 79,700 is about a quarter of what the Limerick closure cost would be. So that's, to close it over the 4 years, and then 100,000 for set aside for Trillium.
Okay, and do we have to raise that through taxation, or is that in reserves?
That's through taxation. That's
okay.
included.
I was concerned about that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for answering that. Okay, Council. Yes, go ahead, Martin. Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just wanted to get back to the Warrensville drainage situation, and you talking about having municipal drains. I believe in Southwest Middlesex. I wonder how many municipal drains is there in Glencoe? Like, I feel that one area should be treated the same way as the other area.
Yeah.
And I'd like to have that information before we talk about the Warrensville storm situation.
Much of the drainage infrastructure, Councillor Vink, went in prior to 2000. So when Glencoe was a municipality unto itself, that drainage system was put in place with the taxation base of Glencoe only. And I believe I may have commented at the last meeting, a couple of meetings ago, there are 8 municipal drains in Appin, and I believe they were put in with their Eckford Township Ward 1 tax rate as well. But between Kristen and Jill, they can give you a more wholesome answer. But from a historical context, I believe those municipalities finance those themselves. And unfortunately, Wardsville has no municipal drains, Martin. And that's where a lot of this problem is, that there's not a place to put the water.
Can I make a comment on that too?
Yep.
Mayor Mayhew?
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead,
Yeah.
Mark, I see you. Yep.
I think it would be a fair way to do things to solve the Wardsville drainage problems through the Drainage Act, because that would be similar to what was done in Appin and Melbourne, and actually in other parts of Ward 3. When drainage is done, landowners have to pay towards it. And also, if it was done through the Drainage Act, I think the county would end up paying quite a bit, because there's 2 county roads go through Wardsville.
That's correct, Mark. And not to mention the fact that that Southwest Middlesex has paid, as Greg pointed out earlier so amply, have paid for that drainage plan. That has been paid by the taxpayers of Southwest Middlesex. And there will be no doubt other engineering costs that we will incur as we go into this chapter of our municipal governance that Southwest Middlesex will have to pay. But I'm inclined to agree with you, Councillor McGill, that it may be the way forward. But that being said, we will have to make sure that it's a very comfortable proposal for the people in Wardsville.
Mayor Mayhew, if I could, we've got a few minutes left before you close out
Go ahead,
today.
Jill.
But Andrew Neely is in this call, so maybe if he can start his video, he might be able to describe what it would, the process might look like if you were to consider going through with the road authority being the petitioner.
Yeah, Jill, that's an excellent suggestion, and thank you very much, Andrew. We'll allow you to unmute, and go ahead, Andrew.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. It would be considered fairly standard to create a drainage infrastructure in a smaller town or village under the Drainage Act. I did reach out to other municipalities and a drainage engineer to inquire about that. And in my own experience, I have seen smaller towns where they do use the Drainage Act for this purpose. And another point to consider with regards to Drainage Act versus general funds, when a new subdivision is built to modern standards now, all of the cost is carried by the subdivision developer and then is divided up amongst all the properties. And then so when property owners buy those properties, that is worked into the cost. And so if we factor in the issue where in Wardsville, as you pointed out, Mr. Mayor, there is no drainage, there is no true infrastructure there. The residents haven't paid for it, and it wouldn't be considered abnormal for them to pay for it now, or at least contribute to it, I should say. And as the mayor pointed out, the county would be contributing towards it. The roads would be contributing as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's going to be a real actuarial process. Councillor Deputy Mayor Wilkins, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. My question is to you because you were around prior to amalgamation. Can you give us a little bit of history on the drain down on Elgin Ave or Elgin Street in Glencoe Place?
Only that it was quite a confrontation. I can't remember it. We're going back a number of years, but I believe that was the ward development had and we're competing about, again, the cost of developer sharing and who would share this. But at that point in time, that was an unusual case. I know that I would not call that by any stretch of the imagination a standardized discussion. I don't want to mention names on a public meeting with identifiable individuals, but I think that it was a legal matter that was challenged at that time as well, with a developer that was close to the proximity of Elgin Ave, refuting some of the municipality's rights of tapping into his drainage system that he paid for. And I think he wanted to be compensated for it. You were on council at the same time?
No, that's before my time. I just remember hearing about
Yeah.
it from
Well, it was quite,
former.
But out of courtesy to the people involved, and that history is behind us now.
That's an agreement drain, though, correct? Paid for by the residents on Elgin.
Yes, that's true. And again, I'm not sure how far it got into civil action, but it was quite a discussion at one time. And both had arguments. Yeah.
Can I just make a quick comment,
Yeah.
Mayor Allen?
Yep.
I just think some of the conversation we're having, we have to remember that the municipality is responsible for the road and the drainage of roads. The rest is private. Now, in many cases, when you talk about agreement drains, there are agreements made with the municipality and local people for drainage works. That happens based on connections to roadways, etc. And these agreements do outline who's responsible to replace what moving forward in the future. You know, when I look at the drain network around, say, Glencoe, the drain network around Glencoe is in place. It provides legal outlets for, you know, the farm properties that we have, as well as the road network. When you look at our infiltration system in the sanitary system in Glencoe, you also see, and we all know, that when the sanitary system was put in Glencoe, that a lot of those particular house connections were not disconnected, and they still do feed into the sanitary system. You know, and we're, you know, that's something that we're moving forward with as far as, you know, trying to improve our infrastructure to get effluent out to the lagoon, to the lagoons itself. So, you know, one of the things about the Drainage Act, now I don't know if I can share my screen. Can I share it quickly, Joe?
Yep, go ahead. We have about 8 minutes, Greg, if you can crunch it down to that time.
Yeah, I'm just
8 to 10
trying.
minutes. Again, just to reiterate that, Greg, you're right. Greg, we took a walk around my property at one time, Greg, and you saw that we were responsible for draining the lands I own as well.
So even if we, you know, there's lots of places that we deal with where they don't have a, you know, a successful outlet, and the road authority works with residents to help them out if they have a challenge situation, and that happens every day. In most of those cases, I would say the majority of the cases, we do have agreement drains in place so that the residents responsible for their own private tile, and that the general taxpayers aren't paying for a problem that comes from a private residence using the road authority as an outlet. Now, I've just pulled up quickly here for you. This is Appin. So if you look at these small blue lines, these are all municipal drains that go throughout the whole network. And you'll see even on the both sides of Appin, where you have an agreement drain here, and you'll see the outlets. These are all, so all these particular homes here are paying a user pay to get rid of water off their properties. It doesn't cost the general taxpayers money other than the support of the drainage superintendent. And you can see the numbers of them. There's a whole slew of them up there. There's the Dugald Street drain. And even if you go to the other side, you'll see the McAfee drain and the, you know, different branches of it, even to the north and as well to the south. So having all the problems that we've had in Appin, the people up there have used the user pay system to get rid of water off their properties. So, you know, when we talk about, you know, the general taxpayer paying for, you know, people in Glencoe to get rid of their stormwater, I'm not sure that's the case. You know, what I see there is the road network, and certainly the drainage and the municipal drain network around Glencoe really does provide a legal outlet, and the road authority is participating in paying their share to have an outlet from all our roads in Glencoe. The majority of stormwater that we see is coming into the sanitary system. It's not being, you know, there's no public road, there's no public storm network that's accommodating all these particular homes. You'll also know, Mayor Allen, that you have and are tied into a road system up on Ewan. And that's a combination of the municipality trying to help the residents that have, you know, ended up in an area. It's no different than Tanya, and it's no different than Rose Street, you know, where we have agreements in place to handle and to try to help residents get rid of water. So the situation we have in Wardsville is completely different. We have no infrastructure there. Very little infrastructure is pieced together. It's been private. It's been put in based on, you know, somebody calling and having a problem. But the whole scope of drainage has not been addressed in Wardsville. It has in the upper portions of Wardsville, certainly in the up on the top of the hill. It's better than it is down south. But, you know, part of what we experienced during the creation of the Stormwater Master Plan, it did point that out to us. So, you know, one of the advantage of the Drainage Act being applied there is that, you know, you would be paying a fee to get rid of your own stormwater, and so would the road authorities. And to be honest, the county is probably one of the biggest contributors up there because of Glendon and Haggerty, or Longwoods and Haggerty. And, you know, we have our road network up there. Our biggest problem we have is that, you know, there isn't any storm tile or very little storm tile. We don't have curbs and gutters. And, you know, of course, they're just tar and chip roads in most cases. So I don't know if that helps, but, you know, just give you a little bit of perspective of the situation that we have in the municipality. I mean, even Melbourne has a municipal drain that runs right straight through the middle of it. So, you know, these are things that people have, and the Drainage Act has been used by people in the past. It's not unusual, and certainly Andrew's comments are taken. You know, he has a fair bit of expertise in this and has had a fair number of conversations with other municipalities and other drainage superintendents as far as using the Drainage Act. I mean, the other thing that it does, if we do that, I mean, there is a public component, and council can sort of gauge the, you know, gauge the public on what they would like to see. So those are my comments. Sorry, I was long.
No, thank you very much, Greg. And as I previously said, this is a very big number. It represents a significant part of the tax rate increase. So this will have to be massaged both numerically and philosophically. Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
So is this number that is been recommended for the stormwater outlet, please correct me, is that the 319,000? Would that be if we opted for the Drainage Act and we are kind of estimating that that would be our share? Or is that something different? Am I misunderstanding?
Yeah. I'll let Kristen answer that. Go ahead, Kristen. Yeah.
No, that would be if we were to undertake the work and fund it from the tax base.
Taxation, yeah. And that's resulting in that higher, I think that's resulting in the higher tax rate, which is evident that we're all a little uncomfortable with. But as Kristen said earlier, though, we are going to massage these numbers. Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
Just as a follow-up question, do we know what our portion of that would be if we went through the Drainage Act, so that we have a bit of a comparison? Because my understanding is we would pay a component of it.
Yeah, Greg or Andrew might be able to answer that, but
yeah, Andrew would be better on that one.
Yeah. Go ahead, Andrew.
Currently, no, we don't have a firm number because there has been no petition submitted. There has been no engineer's report that was done to establish the assessment schedule. I would not be comfortable with giving a percentage at this point because it would just be speculative.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Council. Thank you very much, Andrew. And Councillor McGill, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Well, it would also depend on how many years we wanted to spread this work out over too.
Yeah.
Like, do we want to do this over 10 years or 15 years? You know?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the amortization, I mentioned the amortization earlier.
Yeah.
It's extremely important to get the right numbers there. And of course, as Greg implied, the top of the hill is not bad, but all their water runs to the bottom of the hill, and that's where the people are having the problem. And I think if we recall the big storm that we had early in the year, it was the Ontario Street region that was very compromised on drainage. And I know all of us received numerous pieces of correspondence on that and phone calls. It seems the closer you get, the sections to the south of Main Street seem to be really compromised.
So Mayor Mayhew, if I could.
Yep.
So I think really Kristen touched on this at the beginning of the presentation and introducing the topic as well. But really you might not want to make the decision at this meeting, but just because we've only got a couple of minutes left. But really what we're looking for is whether or not council wants to proceed as if the municipality is taking on that entire project, which Chris Learman presented a couple of months ago, which the cost estimate he provided was just based on, you know, today's dates in terms of the actual cost, and that wasn't the entire project. So the concept is, do you want to take on a $4 to $5 million project over the next 10 years? Or do you want this project to proceed through the Drainage Act? That's the direction. So you would still require outlets regardless, because as Greg has said, you don't have outlets, and that's what that stormwater master plan provided. So you've got a lot of great information either way that you decide to proceed. But really you're going to need to take some action, because there is some concern from private property owners that we're infecting their property with our road water. So we're going to need to take some type of action on this, because I don't think status quo is going to be supported by the property owners that continue to be impacted by this.
No, I agree that we're judged by our actions, not by what we say. And Joe, you're absolutely right. Councillor McGill, go ahead.
Yeah,
Mark,
I just wondered too, and I think Mayor May, you brought this up once before when we discussed this issue. Are there grants available on this kind of drainage work, either if it's done through the drainage act or done in some other way?
I regret, Mark, not by the particular householders. Perhaps the county will get some grants on it, but I'll let Andrew give you an answer to that.
Under the Drainage Act, only the properties that are agricultural properties would be eligible for the OMAFRA grant. To my knowledge, there would be no grants for residential property owners in Wardsville.
Yeah, but it's a huge project. It's necessary, but I think the Drainage Act may be the way to go. I'm just not sure. We would be in a very high tax position for a number of years, for a decade almost, if we tried to be the director of this ourselves. But I'll let council speak to it. As chair, I shouldn't be giving that opinion, but would someone entertain a motion? Does council feel strong enough about that, in view of the cost of this project, in view of the fairness to all concerned, including those of Wardsville? Is the Drainage Act the way to go? And then staff could be directed, Andrew could be directed to get things in place, and we would have the opportunity, I might say, for much public input on that from the people of Wardsville. And others, of course, in our community. But does someone feel strong enough that this is the most efficient and fiduciary way to go, that they would move that staff be instructed to proceed with a Drainage Act review of this, and not for the whole project, but for the $300,000 that's been proposed in Kristen's budget? Anyone entertain a motion to that effect? Councillor McGill, go ahead. Mark, if you'd like to verbally tell me, as well as raise your hand, you're proposed to move that motion?
Yeah, I'll move that motion.
Okay, we'll see if we can get a seconder for you. Councillor Crothers, you'll second Mark McGill's motion? Yes, okay, yep. Unmute there, please, if you would.
Yes.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Crothers. Discussion, council. Go ahead, Councillor Scholdice.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I really think that we need to get some more information before we make a rush decision here. This is a huge project, and I think we're making it very, very quickly without all the information that's required.
Okay. a lot of that information will not be revealed until we have a study and a recommendation. Jill or Andrew, can you speak to that? We can discuss it, but how do you move this forward? Andrew?
At this point, in order to move forward, council would have to direct the administration, particularly the road authority, to sign Section 4 of the Drainage Act, the petition, in order to initiate the process for this to go forward. Unless Jill has anything to add or at all.
Through you, Mayor Mayhew. No, I would only say that if council wants to have a lengthy discussion at 6 o'clock and you have your meeting at 7 o'clock, so you may want to defer the discussion to the next budget meeting unless you as the chair would like to see this proceed tonight.
Thank you, Jill. In view of Councillor Scholdice's concern about discussion, Andrew, by putting forth the Section 4 petition, there will be ample time for discussion by both the residents of Wardsville and the Council of Southwest Middlesex. Does that impede that process if we go ahead with this motion? Will there be ample time for residents to speak and for council to discuss?
Yes.
If you proceed with a Section 4.
Yes, sir. There would definitely be time for that. There would be the requirement under the Act to have meetings, and I would definitely err on the side of more meetings than normal even, and sending notices out to people within the areas that we decide to start with in order to make sure that it is known that this is the intention. Yes.
Can I ask a quick question just before we go? Just through you, Mayor Allen, to my Councillor Scholdice, what would you be looking for more information? What information? Just so we could.
Well, what the costs are going to be to the ratepayers. Has there been any research into anybody local in Wardsville that can tell you where existing drains are? I know myself, there is quite a few, but I hear that they say we have no municipal drains there. So I'm just wondering who has talked to, has anybody on staff been able to talk to anybody locally over there that has knowledge of this? Because it sounds like staff really doesn't have any knowledge of what drainage is there currently in place.
So through you, Mayor Allen, Councillor Crothers has given me a drainage plan that was a historic drainage plan that got from somebody up there. I believe it came through Councillor Crothers. And we have compared that to the work that was done in the field and through the Stormwater Master Plan. And we did find out that there was a lot of commonality between the two. And there were cases, obviously, where that was older, so that some of the work that we found in the field was a little bit different. But, we followed that up after the Stormwater Master Plan was completed, when we found that document was out there, and we do have that, and we have made the comparison. So we do know a little bit about what's up there, but all I was getting at is, are there questions that we can answer moving forward? Mike, that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Maybe I may be misunderstanding, but I thought if there was no municipal drains in place, we had to go through the Municipal Act, but we could go the other way if there was infrastructure in place. And I'm just making the point that there is infrastructure in place that needs to be replaced.
Yeah, no, and you're correct. There is infrastructure that's in place. Most of that is just spotty. It's private stuff that, where they've gone through the road. Some is related to the road. Some is related.
So given that, I'm not sure if this is the right direction for us to go.
But if I could say, Councillor Scholdice, whatever infrastructure is in place, it's very obvious that it is inadequate. And that the residents of Wardsville can speak to that have been affected by poor drainage. So there is work to be that is required there of significant proportion. Councillor McGill, go ahead.
Yeah, since it is after 6 o'clock and we have another meeting at 7, I would like to defer my motion till the next meeting. But, even if we did go through the Drainage Act, there will still be a considerable cost to the municipality. Like I'm thinking back to there was a drain on Centerville done just this spring, and I think the cost to the municipality there was $75,000. The
Yes,
drain
yeah.
cost the road 4 places. And then I think just at our last council meeting, we talked about the Eichenberger drain. And I believe that one's going to cost the municipality about $30,000.
Yeah, and I
And
alluded
they're
to
not
that.
really very big drains. So
Yep.
this is still going to cost the municipality, if we went through the Drainage Act, it would still cost the municipality quite a bit of money, but property owners would be paying too, and the county would be paying too. So the work might actually get done a lot faster by
Yeah.
going through the Drainage Act. That's
And-
what I'm thinking.
And I alluded to that. There are significant costs to the municipality. Councillor Crothers, the motion was made by Councillor McGill. You seconded that motion. Are you in favor of that being deferred to the next meeting?
Yes, that's fine with me.
Okay, thanks
be
very
better.
much. Then that'll be deferred. Council, if there's nothing else, and thank you, staff, for your inputs on that. It's much appreciated. Greg, Andrew, Jill, and Kristen, thanks very much for walking us through that. There's
Mayor
one more
Allen?
question left. Yes, Councillor Scholas, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Mayor Allen, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wondered, has the municipality received pricing on all of the capital requests that were presented here this afternoon or today? And if not, could we get a little more accurate pricing on some of them before we approve them? A couple that come to mind is the bleachers at the arena. I maybe not have followed the conversation close enough, but I didn't get a real clear answer on what are we replacing with that money, how much of it? And also the roof at the Historical Society. I can't see it costing $50,000 to put steel on that front peak of that building. That just seems quite high to me. So I just wondered if we could double check some of these prices and get actual pricing before we make decisions on this.
We could, Kristen, Jill, we certainly, I noticed that even through the context of the budget, there may be some numbers that can be massaged here and more information. Any response to that, Kristen or Jill or Greg?
I would say that as with every budget, it's estimates that we are using. The actual dollars can come in higher or lower than what is being set aside, but we could take a look at those couple of items just to check to make sure that we've got as much information as we could possibly have. And sometimes it's the context of what actually is being requested. So a couple of those, several of the capital items were not items that staff proposed. Right? It was council members making the request, and staff came up with the estimates based on what they knew at the time. So we can work on refining that together to clarify what exactly the request is.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll work on that. Council, if I could end just by saying that a budget is a roadmap that we follow. Very often there's a misconception that that is what we decided and that is what we're going to spend. It is a guideline. We can use it as we travel through our governance and look at it for reference to make sure that we're on course. So it is, a budget is not a document that is carved in stone. It is a roadmap to follow. I'll adjourn the meeting, and before I go, I want to thank Chief Sewell for your presence. It's very nice to see you, and we look forward to meeting you in person. I'd like to share a cup of coffee with you someday.
Mayor?
Okay. Thank you, Jill. Thank you,
Mayor,
Greg. Thank you.
Before,
Yes.
um,
Did I miss somebody?
no, the chief just let me know that the current generator is 26 years old.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's
And
significant.
if I could get a bylaw, just a mover and a seconder for the bylaw for confirming the meeting, that'd be terrific.
Certainly can. Thank you. If someone
First,
confirm
second,
bylaw?
and third.
Yep,
First,
thank you
second,
very
and
much.
third.
Seconded by Councillor McGill. All questions? In favor? Passed. Thank you very much, Council. We'll see you at 7.